In 1968, at a press conference, the most famous band in the world, the Beatles, were asked a question: "Who is your favorite American artist?" The answer surprised many people at the time. They didn't say Dylan or Elvis or any other giant name. They said a single word: Nilsson. At that moment, most of the world was hearing this name for the first time. Harry Nilsson, the favorite artist of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, the man who would be called the American Beatle. He had one of the most beautiful voices in the world, spanning 3.5 octaves. He would win 2 Grammys. His songs would be carved into the memory of a generation. But today, most people don't even know his name. How could a genius the Beatles adored be so quietly forgotten? This is the story of a genius, and of the downfall that genius built with his own hands. Harry Edward Nilsson was born in 1941 in Brooklyn, into a poor family. When he was only 3, his father abandoned the family and left. His mother told little Harry that his father had died in the war. Harry would only learn years later that this was a lie. His father had not died. He had simply left. This abandonment opened a wound in Harry that never healed. Years later, one of his most beautiful songs, 1941, would tell exactly this story, how his father had abandoned them. His childhood passed in poverty, tossed from relative to relative. He never had any formal music training, but there was something inside him, a sense of melody, a voice. As a young man, to make a living, he began working the night shift at a bank. By day, he wrote songs. He taught himself. And those songs were so good that eventually, someone noticed. Harry Nilsson, the bank clerk, was slowly turning into an artist. Nilsson's real breakthrough came through his voice. In 1968, he recorded a song called "Everybody's Talkin'." The song wasn't actually his, but with his clear, sorrowful, crystalline voice, it became something else entirely. The song was used in the film Midnight Cowboy, and suddenly it was rising everywhere. Nilsson won his first Grammy. Then came perhaps his most famous moment, "Without You." Another group had written this song too, but with Nilsson's enormous, heartbreaking rendition, the song became immortal. This was his second Grammy, and there were the songs he wrote himself: The Playful Coconut, Spaceman, about the loneliness of an alien, and The Point, a fairy tale album he made for children. Nilsson was now at the top. Critics adored him. The Beatles loved him. From Joe Cocker to Diana Ross, from Barbra Streisand to Ella Fitzgerald, everyone was singing his songs. It seemed nothing could stop him. But inside Nilsson, there was a strange resistance to his own success. This was the thing that made Harry Nilsson so extraordinary and so tragic. He was one of the biggest stars in the world, but he was strange. He almost never gave a live concert. He never went on tour. He rarely even appeared on television. Think about it. Millions of people were in love with his voice, but almost no one had ever seen him on a stage. The reasons were complex. Maybe it was stage fright. Maybe it was the deep insecurity of that abandoned child. Maybe he just wanted to play the game by his own rules. But the result was this. From the live stage, the greatest promotional tool an artist has, Nilsson deliberately stayed away. This was a quiet suicide for his career, because songs came and went, but that moment where people would remember his face, where they'd bond with him at concerts, never happened. Everyone knew his voice, but very few knew his name and his face. And it was in exactly this period that one of the most famous men in the world entered his life, John Lennon. After the Beatles broke up, John Lennon and Harry Nilsson became very close friends. In the mid-1970s, the two of them, in Los Angeles, during that famous period known as the Lost Weekend, plunged into drinking sprees that became the stuff of legend. They were members of a drinking club called the Hollywood Vampires. The nights stretched longer and longer, and alcohol and revelry took over everything. Lennon produced an album for Nilsson, Pussycats. But during those recordings, something happened. Nilsson strained his voice so hard that it said he did permanent damage to his vocal cords, and it said he hid this from Lennon because he didn't want the sessions to stop. That unmatched voice, those 3.5 octaves, had begun slowly to wear away. He was spending his greatest treasure with his own hands. Smoking, alcohol, and that relentless lifestyle were slowly consuming both Nilsson's voice and his health. That bright star at the top had begun slowly to fade. In 1980, John Lennon was shot and killed. This shook Nilsson deeply. To lose his closest friend in such a brutal way broke him clean in two. From that day on, Nilsson withdrew almost entirely from the music world. He devoted most of his energy to campaigning for gun control. The way his friend died had turned him into an activist, but the years were cruel to Nilsson. Bad business decisions cost him nearly his entire fortune. His health declined, and he was diagnosed with diabetes. The man who had once possessed one of the most envied voices in the world had collapsed, financially and physically. In 1993, he suffered a severe heart attack, but he didn't give up. He wanted to make one more album. As if racing against death, he set to work recording the vocals for his final songs. And on January 15, 1994, right after finishing the vocals for his last album, Harry Nilsson died of a heart attack. He was 52 years old. He left behind one of the most beautiful voices in the world, unforgettable songs, and a tragic question. Why is this genius, adored by the Beatles and winner of 2 Grammys, not remembered today as much as he deserves? Perhaps the answer is hidden in his story, because Harry Nilsson made his voice heard by the world, but never showed himself. He gave his songs to everyone, but never shared the stage with anyone. He was the man who was heard, but never seen. And perhaps that is why that unmatched voice faded over time into silence. But now you have heard him, and as long as we remember, no voice is ever truly lost. To keep bringing forgotten voices like these into the light, subscribe. Thank you for watching. So glad you exist, and so glad you're here.